Have you ever felt stuck in a cycle of procrastination, low motivation, and endless scrolling? You know you should be productive, but somehow distractions always win. Well, the problem might not be in your willpower, it's your dopamine system. And today we're talking about how to reset your dopamine so you can get more done and actually feel good while doing it. So let's dive in. Before that, of course, if you like this episode, make sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. Always have more weekly content coming out for you, and I'd really appreciate it. So dopamine is often called the pleasure chemical. It plays a big role in how we feel pleasure and reward. It can help us focus, work towards goals, and actually helps us find things interesting, which is why it's a lot more tempting to be scrolling through TikTok rather than listening to our professor's hour-and-a-half-long lecture. Dopamine is also actually the motivation chemical. Your brain releases dopamine when it expects a reward, which pushes you to actually take action. When you do something good, you feel that rush of dopamine. And we as people naturally seek more of those good feelings by repeating that behavior over and over again. Back in the day, and I mean way back in our Homo sapien ancestors, dopamine helped humans hunt, gather, and survive. Nowadays, it's hijacked by social media, junk food, and video games. And these things give really quick dopamine spikes with zero effort, which makes work feel really boring. Since we get all of these rushes of quick dopamine and they're so easily accessible to us, it can cause an imbalance in our ability to work and function as we know we should. So how do we fix this? We have to retrain our brain to associate dopamine with real achievements instead of cheap thrills. We have to separate ourselves from this addiction of quick hits and go for longer lasting dopamine results. We have to fight back against those impulsive behaviors and rely more on our own willpower to hit those dopamine highs. While I was thinking about this and how we reset our dopamine, I was reminded of a game theory episode from several years ago where we talked about mobile games. And while I don't think they're as prevalent in our lives as they were several years back, things like Clash of Clans, Candy Crush, I just don't see them nearly as much as I used to, but maybe that's just me. They show how marketers, programmers, developers are kind of taking advantage of our dopamine hits to hopefully keep us hooked and keep us coming back. So the developers of these games knew what they were doing. Whenever one of these games came out, it was super easy to progress and get things going. You were constantly rewarded right up front with additional hearts or gems that ultimately allowed you to basically supercharge your playtime. You were crushing levels, you were destroying enemy bases, and you were having a fantastic time. And you were constantly rewarded with these kind of dopamine hits. Your brain was basically swimming in it. Then, as it goes on, it starts to regulate it a little bit more. You don't get nearly as many hearts as you used to. Every time you fail a level, you kind of have to wait another 15 minutes before you can play again. You have to wait for your army to be built up before you go raid the enemy base one more time. So they were able to regulate that. They would basically shut you down when you're riding that dopamine high, causing you to have to put it down for a while, but then craving it more and more as you go on because you never truly got bored of the game. And now we have things like TikTok and Instagram, which are hijacking our dopamine highways. It's constantly forcing us to look for those next few reels that are going to give us a good little chuckle and then ultimately keep scrolling. Just enough to keep us around, but also a ton of other stuff that we really just don't find interesting at all. So really, how do we break free from this cycle when it seems like everyone is trying to take advantage of it? Here's the secret. Dopamine isn't just about the rewards. It's about the effort. The harder something is, the bigger the dopamine hits when you succeed. Think of it as when you're playing a game as a kid, like any of the Super Nintendo games where you have no save points, no checkpoints. You had to basically beat the whole game on your first try. When you're actually able to do that, there's that huge celebratory rush. Recently for me, beating Guitar Hero on expert mode. Let's go! Guess who did it? Woo! Man, that was awesome. It's something I worked really hard for. I tried really hard. I remember sitting in college classes, literally practicing how to play Raining Blood on guitar. But ultimately, when I beat it, there was such a huge rush of dopamine because it was a very difficult thing. The dopamine just hits harder when the task is more difficult. And just imagine it for yourself. What's a goal you've always been trying to hit? Is it trying to lose those 20 pounds, get that six-pack of abs, or maybe launching and getting that first business sale? That's the rush we're going for. That's the motivation behind it. Studies show that when we push ourselves, whether in fitness, work, or learning, our brain releases more dopamine over time. And this means that motivation comes after effort, not really before. Instead of waiting to feel like it, start anyway and let dopamine catch up. But that's the catch. It isn't instant gratification like we're used to. It actually takes some time and effort, which is just plain hard. So what's the best way to actually reset our dopamine? Of course, doing hard things, that's the easy thing, but if we're not seeing progress, we'll ultimately end up giving up. And really, what it comes down to is we kind of have to start. Action first, motivation second. Your brain loves momentum. When you wake up, take action right away. Whether it's working out, journaling, or just diving into a project, get up and get moving. And I know it can be especially hard because most of the time our smartphones are our alarm clocks. They ultimately wake us up and it's the first thing we reach for in the morning. And that's kind of by design. They want you to be on your phones. They want you to continue consuming and entertaining yourself through the content that they are pumping through it. So having our phone be the first thing we reach in the morning entices us to just kind of stay in bed, stay sluggish, and get that dopamine hit right from the get-go. Push our dopamine levels at an all-time high as we're watching little reels or watching a YouTube video, and then kind of start to feel like it later in the day. But it leaves us to feel sluggish and demotivated for the remainder of the day. But even with small wins like making your bed, give you a little bit of a dopamine boost to start the day strong. So when your alarm goes off, go and splash some water on your face. Get out of bed and get moving. And I would leave your phone for about an hour. And this is an idea from The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrond, which I read a few years back. His idea was that for the first hour of the day basically sets the tone for the rest of the day. Whatever you do during that first hour, whether it be laying in bed, catching up on a little bit of sleep, watching a couple of Instagram reels, and then slowly getting dressed, getting ready for work, and then going, or getting up in that first hour, making your bed, working on a project, journaling, reading, whatever it may be, ultimately sets the tone for the rest of your day. So if you're sluggish and scrolling in bed, you'll be sluggish and scrolling all the rest of your day. So if you get up and get moving and get productive for that first hour, you become more motivated throughout the day to actually reach for your goals. And a Stanford neuroscientist, Andrew Huberman, recommends getting morning sunlight and movement to kickstart your brain's natural dopamine production. This simple habit makes you more focused and energized for the rest of the day. The only hard part for me is the winter right now, because instead of sunny mornings, I get gray, cloudy snowstorms. But still, it's the same idea. Getting up and getting moving makes it a lot easier to kind of get going in the morning. And going back to one of the biggest dopamine killers is that instant gratification. And modern life is full of supernormal stimuli. Things like endless scrolling, binge watching, and sugary foods. These just hijack our dopamine systems and make real work actually feel dull and boring. The fix is actually delaying gratification and using our willpower to push those things off and do what's actually more important. So try some small changes like no phone for the first hour of your day, or reward yourself only after finishing a task, not during. These small shifts train your brain to seek dopamine from real effort instead of easy shortcuts. And this is what I find really interesting. I mean, think about the last time you did some social media scrolling or whatever you do to burn a bit of time, watching YouTube videos, binge watching your favorite Netflix show. What do you actually remember from that? I mean, think about it, because I think about it often is after about an hour or so of scrolling on Instagram, or maybe even just watching a YouTube channel or video, I go, what did I actually remember from that? Nothing. And you know what that means? I could watch the same thing over again and get the same little dopamine hit because I wasn't actually retaining anything. Even from the ones that I was trying to learn from, things like Smarter Every Day, Mark Rober, Ali Abdaal, some of these things I just don't remember. I couldn't tell anybody about them because I just put it on to kind of kill 15 minutes. And honestly, the weekly notification I get on my phone about how much time I spend on it, and I actually can't remember all that much of what I did. If I spend 6 to 8 hours on my phone a day, you would think I would have some kind of memory of what I did on that, but I really couldn't tell you. And I don't think that I actually internalized any of that information. I just kind of went, well, that's neat, that's interesting, and then went on to the next form of entertainment. So we have to delay that gratification. We have to push that dopamine off until we actually do something that's a little bit more rewarding, so it sets the tone for the rest of our day and the rest of our week. Because in all honesty, your phone is like a slot machine for dopamine. Every little notification and text, buzz, ping keeps you addicted. It keeps you looking at your phone. And we all do it. I mean, look around the next time you're at some kind of a social gathering, whether it be a restaurant, going to class, whatever it may be, phones are everywhere. Everyone is on their phone all the time, watching, engaging, or entertaining themselves with something. And a dopamine detox can actually help reset our dopamine cycle. So try turning off non-essential notifications. So delete some of your more addicting apps for a week. Try to kind of break free from this addiction a little bit. After a short detox, your brain starts craving real-world rewards instead of a digital distraction. You can also set limits on your phone that actually limit the amount of time that you actually spend on certain apps. And this is in most phones nowadays. You can set time frames for how much you want to spend on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, whatever it may be. There's also a ton of third-party apps that kind of make you have to pause and wait before actually going into an app. So you actually are making sure that that is something you want to do instead of something that you just are feeling pulled to do. And here's another crazy tidbit. Boredom is actually good for you. In today's world, we're never truly bored. If we're ever in a dull moment, boom, phone comes out, that's what we're looking at. We have a game to play, something to watch or listen to. Since it never really leaves our side, boredom has no place in our modern society. But studies show that actually allowing yourself to be bored boosts your creativity and problem solving. When your brain isn't bombarded with stimulation, it starts forming deeper thoughts and connections. Take this study from the Academy of Management Discoveries. People who had gone through this boredom-inducing task, in this case it was separating a bowl of beans by color one by one, ultimately performed much better at idea generation. They were ultimately much more creative than some of their counterparts because they had time to be bored and let their brain kind of solve it for them. We never allow our brain to solve its own boredom problems. We just turn on our phones and let them do it for us. So the next time you're in line or sitting alone, resist the urge to check your phone. Let your mind wander and kind of be surprised by what you come up with. Look at things that you might want to work towards or goals that you might have. Is this something that's actually working towards your vision board, or is it something that's just going to kill a couple of minutes until the next thing happens in our life? Dopamine resets aren't just about productivity, they also help you control impulsive behavior, which is kind of the whole point as what I was getting at. A lot of the times when I make episodes for this show, it's something that I'm struggling with myself and ultimately something that I'm trying to learn to hopefully help you guys out in your personal lives. I know for myself, I've been spending way too much time on my phone and doing things that just aren't as important, and I want to be motivated to do more important things that help me, my family, and the people who are closest to me. Mindfulness, meditation, and even daily exercise help strengthen this prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for self-control. The stronger this area is, the easier it becomes to resist distractions and stay focused. Another hack, make your decisions in advance. You want to work out? Lay your clothes out the night before. You want to eat healthier? Have an idea of what you want to eat by the time you get home, instead of waiting until you get off work and go, well, it's just easier if I pick up a burger and fries. I use journaling as a way to note the things that I want to accomplish throughout the day and what I'm thinking about at that time. This pre-commitment removes the need for willpower and makes good choices effortless. So resetting your dopamine isn't about removing all pleasure. It's about taking control of where your dopamine comes from, making sure you're in the driving seat and you're the one that's actually doing what you want with your time. When you shift from this instant gratification to actually real achievement dopamine, you feel much more motivated, focused, and in control of your life. So pick one habit from this video and commit to do it over the course of this next week. Your future self will thank you. If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this, and share this with someone who might need a dopamine reset. Until next time, I'll catch you guys later. See ya.